I love the new disclaimer.
Why did I leave it cracked?
The voice,
Like
right?
we have a
Scary
choice.
voice.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second committee of the whole budget meeting for fiscal 22. I'm just going to read the legal blurb. Consistent with governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings such that an in-person meeting of the budget team is not possible. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. So if anybody sees a participant with their hand up or anything, please bring it to my attention. It's hard enough managing the motions, the budget book, the calendar, who's next. So I appreciate any extra eyes that I can get. So on the call today, I want to specifically thank Councilor Gilman for subbing in again for Scott. He has been told to take it easy and slow. He will pop in later if he's able, but in the meantime, thank you, Councilor Gilman, for subbing in. So we have our regular crew, Councilor McCarthy and myself, Councilor Cox. With us today, we have the City Auditor, Kenny Costa, CFO, John Dunn, Clerk of Committee, Sherry Carvalis, Magical Assistant to John Dunn, Grace McCann, from the administration, Frank Cousins, and Krista Carranza. So that is all I see. I'm going to look at the participants list real quick, and we have none. So, all right. So today we are starting off with the police department. That would start on page 27, Department 210. And I think what we'll do is just go ahead and have you roll through the whole budget, and then we can make the motions afterwards if there's no revisit. So how are you today, Chief?
Morning, everyone. I'm well. I go on vacation this afternoon through the weekend, so I'm very, very well.
Nice. Where are you going?
Napa.
Nice. Oh, wow. West Coast. Goodness.
Well, it's apparently a long flight, but
Yeah, it's only 4 or 5 hours.
You did get our wine water, right?
Well, a group of us are going back. We were there 2 years ago, and this particular vineyard, if you buy enough wine, there's a private home that you can have for 4 nights for free, and you can aggregate that between the whole group of friends. Mission accomplished. So it should be fun.
I'm gonna mute myself real quick. I'm getting a call from a number that I'm not quite sure if it's family or not, because it's a Oregon area code. So I just want to check on that real quick. Chief, if you want to go ahead with your presentation, please feel free.
Great, thank you, Counselor. So as everybody on this call knows, police budgets, and really public safety budgets in general, are probably around 96% contractual. And I think as we move through our budget request for FY22, you'll see that beyond that, there's really not many big requests. Sort of a overall view of the things we may want to pay attention to. We'll see some increases are in and around training, really. The increases in training are a reflection of what we will see in terms of state mandates coming to fruition next year regarding mandatory training that came out of the police reform legislation. So we're just trying to plan for that. Most of the salary line items, the increases are the result of contractual raises that also trigger other raises and increases in longevity and holiday pay, et cetera. If anybody has any initial questions or things that they want me to focus on, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of move through from beginning to end in the budget.
Chief, if there's just any larger than normal bumps, if you can just explain it as you go through so we don't have to ask you afterwards.
Very good, I will. In fact, we'll start right off with that. So at first, on what I have is page 27, under police administration salaries, you'll see a slight increase for the financial coordinator. This is a reflection of a small reorganization I'm trying to accomplish here at the police department, where historically administrative staff have sort of reported to different people. I'm trying to consolidate that chain of command under one person. And to be honest, the financial coordinator here, Stacy Nicastro, who's doing it for several years, has sort of been performing that role without the actual titles and job description. So we did a rewrite of the job description. I worked with Holly on that. She thought it was a good idea. And so you'll see a slight increase there, and that's the explanation for that. We all know Fiesta will, it looks like as of right now that things will move forward next year, and there's a slight increase in the Fiesta, but again, that's a reflection of the effect of contractual raises on the cost of providing security for Fiesta. And really on this page, there's really not much more that is not contractual. Any of these raises you see under sick buyback of 4.4%, longevity, these are all contractual raises that are being triggered by the raise in salary and along with some people moving up in years and just triggering additional increases in their longevity and buyback. I think everything on the next page, or what I'm showing is page 28, is all, these are all our contracts that we pay for every single year just to keep our systems here operational, to include our fingerprint maintenance contracts with the state. These are digital fingerprint machines that we utilize, and there's certain requirements that we maintain those and maintain our connectivity with the state. Move right down through that. I think you see everything's pretty much level funded. Due to membership, these are very typical things that we have asked for year over year. We have, I should say, year over year. This is just maintaining those.
Chief, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Councilor Memhard has joined us this morning. So Councilor Gilman, are you okay with Councilor Memhard being the third party? You're more than welcome to stay on, or you can go do wonderful fun things with your day.
I plan on being on the call for the entirety, so.
Okay, all right, great.
I'm willing to sit back and let Councilor Memhard be the third member. Of course, it's your call, but I'm happy to do that. And then if you need me to alternate in at that point, it's your call. So I will, I'll be the fourth member right now, if that's, I'm just delighted that Councilor Memhard is back.
Yes, we all are, definitely. Welcome, Councilor Memhard.
Thank you.
Chief Conley just got done going over Department 210, which is police administration and their personnel and their ordinary. And then we are going to move on to 211 police uniform. If anybody doesn't have any questions or requests for revisit for 210. Seeing none, okay. All right, Chief, if you want to go ahead and thank you, Councilor McCarthy, for the rundown on process. I appreciate that. So my aunt was calling, it's very early to receive a call from Oregon. So I always freak out when that happens. She was just calling to tell me that she got home from her trip safely. So awesome.
Up early.
Yeah. Well, they fly into Reno and then they drive 5 hours to get home. So fun times. All right, so moving on to Department 211, police uniform, page 30.
Right. Thank you. Yep. So we're moving along to 211. And you'll see right off the bat an 8.5% increase. This is just a reflection. Again, this is contractual, and the increase, it wasn't that everybody received an 8.5% raise, but the last the last budget didn't have the contract amount in it yet. So this is kind of the reflection of two raise periods going in. This is how Munis sort of calculates it automatically and puts it out. So this is just a reflection of contractual raises times two. Station overtime, you see a 36% decrease. This is because we spun some money off from here to give our community impact unit its own budget. So rather than constantly having requests, can we work this, can we do that? I spun some money off, and I'm going to hold that unit accountable to stay within the budget, and also provide while providing programming throughout the year. So it's more of an accountability, administrative accountability measure. OT Beach is, if you scroll down, you see 11.4% increase. Again, this is a reflection of the raises that went in 2 years times 2, plus a slight increase in requesting based on our experience last year. And as I know we're all fond of saying, that last year people discovered Gloucester, and we don't think, fortunately, we don't think that that's going to change. So we put a little bit extra in there for this year. That's always weather dependent and what actually gets spent from it. Moving on to page 31. I feel like I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, but this is, again, if we move down here, these are all, everything on page 31 is a reflection of contractual obligations that we have to our staff. I really don't see anything beyond that on this page. So unless there's any questions, I think I'm just going to continue. Page 32, you'll see probably the most eye-popping increase of this. And this is because the contract that we settled with the patrol and superior officers union also had an incentive, a physical education incentive program. I should say physical education, but I should say a PT test, basically, incentive program, the standards of which were incorporated into their contract. And what this means is once a year, every employee is allowed to volunteer to show up at a track and perform a run, a 1.5 mile run, X number of push-ups and X number of sit-ups, which are based on their age and gender. The standards come right out of the Essex County Sheriff's Department, along with the majority of the policy that we all agreed on. This is, I think, a real beneficial, I know there's a little bit of cost involved, but in my experience, these types of programs, they start a little slow, but after a while it becomes the place to be. And there's a little bit of positive peer pressure that works in. And I've seen more and more people start to at least dedicate some period to fitness. And I think we can all agree that maintaining a level of fitness helps reduce injury and sick costs. But I'll tell you one other quick thing that was kind of interesting. So in order to participate in our the fitness incentive program, you have to have a doctor sign off on a waiver. And what we found last year was there were a handful, maybe more than a handful of officers that had been so long since they had had a fitness test, a regular annual physical, that their doctors, it was an opportunity for their doctors to say, hey, I'm not signing anything until you come in here for an exam, which studies have shown just seeing your doctor once a year and taking your medication as prescribed is also a significant method of reducing the costs associated with injury, sickness. So I think in time, this is a great investment. Going down to stipends, you see a small increase in stipends there at 11%. Most of that is just, again, a result of us. There are more people that are taking advantage of the stipends. There are a couple of more positions that have been included under our stipends, to include assistant training supervisor, CIU officer, community impact unit officer, which we were increased by 1 recently, and that will go into next fiscal year. There might be 1 or 2 other ones. Boat supervisor is another one. The Marine unit here in Gloucester has had a senior boat operator who's taking care of the boat and had a lot of responsibilities. But last year, our police boat really took on, and you'll see this later in the budget, took on a much more primary role in terms of summer safety. And we're really trying to expand the police boat program to develop a training policy, annual test out for all our operators and boatmates. And in order to accomplish that, we need to have a supervisor that oversees that and holds everybody accountable for it, and someone I can hold accountable to accomplish that. Moving down, we have what the decrease in, right. So you see a 44% decrease here under police uniform ordinary. And that is just, that's administrative impact of, we had our public relations firm removed from our budget and placed into the mayor's budget so that it could be expanded and access could be provided for all department heads. So that's just Munis kind of calculating that for us. Everything else here is fairly straightforward. There's no other increases. These are all current systems that we have, and these are the costs of maintaining those systems.
Does anybody have any questions on police uniform?
No.
Okay, personnel or ordinary. If you want to just briefly touch on the capital outlay for police uniform. And they're all, I mean, it's actually a decrease, so if anybody has any questions on that. Otherwise, we can just move forward. Okay. Department 212, page 35, police criminal investigations.
So in terms of your first question, Counselor, the 13.6% decrease under vehicles, this is just a reflection of we're paying off one of the leased vehicles. And we expect a savings that year. Moving on to page 35. So moving on to 212. These are all, again, contractual. These are all triggered by contractual obligations. In terms, this is all our detective personnel. I don't see anything here that really, on the first page or the second page, that really requires me to expand upon unless anybody has any questions.
All right, any questions on Department 212, police investigation, personnel or ordinary? All right, page 37, police harbor.
So under police harbor, you'll see an increase here. As you know, I've been before BNF to discuss our police boat. And as I just mentioned, really took a primary role here last summer. We anticipate that continuing to this summer and here on out. And this increase reflects what our experience was last year in trying to staff that boat as often as possible particularly during the weekends and periods of great weather and high traffic on in and around our harbor.
I have a question for you on this. There's not a regular line item. It's strictly OT. Is the police boat operated strictly on OT time?
It is. So we don't, we call it a marine unit, but it's not, we don't have a separate set of personnel who was spun off just to work the boat through the summer. We just don't have that personnel to do that. So every time that we staff the boat, it is on an overtime basis.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is it primarily backup for the harbor master, like those kind of calls? You don't just throw somebody on the boat just for an afternoon or?
So it's sort of more not backup as much as we work in conjunction or parallel with the harbor master. The harbor master has some limitations. The harbor master doesn't have the right of arrest in most circumstances. And even if the harbor master did have the right of arrest, they're not equipped or trained to do that. They don't carry firearms. They're unable to do that. The harbor master's function and the police function on the water are slightly different, but it certainly, they work together in terms of providing the safety. But we're other than the Coast Guard, which is restricted to enforcing federal law, there really is no other way other than when the environmental police are here on the off times that they are for anybody else to enforce criminal law on the water here in Gloucester.
Fabulous. Thank you. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. Chief, does this line item, are we able to, how does the union contract work in terms of us choosing what days we're going to need this position based on the weather? Are we able to flex that, or are we forced to schedule it in advance regardless of the weather? If you know what I mean.
So we typically we can flex and we definitely prioritize. So every time there's say a weekend or a day or a holiday, we have to play a little bit of a juggling act between staffing what priorities we want to put. Do we want to prioritize staffing the beach, staffing the boat, staffing the quarries? And to be honest, my first year here, the quarries and the beach were a priority for staffing and not so much the boat. But last year, it was absolutely essential that that boat was on the harbor during periods of high traffic, which obviously coincide with periods of nice weather. So typically within 24 hours, we can make a determination of whether or not the boat is going to be staffed. And just in terms of operational routine, that's usually a conversation I have with Deputy Chief Fitzgerald in around Wednesday, Thursday, and then that can be put out on Friday to be hired for Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday for Friday.
Right. So if it's going to be pouring rain on a weekend, you don't need to, you can say we don't need you for that position.
It really is all throughout the summer during the busy year. It is a conversation we have weekly to determine what priority we're going to put on route and different overtime assignments for that weekend.
Great, thank you.
All right, any further questions for Police Harbor? Any requests for a revisit?
No, I have
All right.
none.
Moving on to page 38, Police Parking Department 218.
So under parking, this is a reflection of one of our parking enforcement officers coming from part-time to full-time. That happened in the midst of budget last year. We were able to cover it with other lag that we had in the budget, but this year we want to make that a permanent position. I think we all saw from the data coming out that last year was a record year by about an order of magnitude for revenue and for writing and just for raw ticket numbers here. I don't see that changing. In fact, I can honestly see this particular part of the budget being expanded once we start to understand what the workload and the impact of the new kiosk will actually be. There's some indication that might be more efficient way of writing tickets. We might be able to write more with the two people, and there's other indication that given how we lock up so to say parking regulations and parking areas and how we manage that we're just going to have to take another look at this, whether or not it doesn't make sense. The return on investment wouldn't be in maybe hiring another part-time person. But I'm not ready to make that decision now, because I don't want to hire somebody to let them go if that's not what happens. I'd rather just see what happens when the kiosks go live, what our experience is, and if we need to scale up, then we scale up then. But that's not what I'm doing right now.
Good idea. Chief, did you have any, I'm concerned with the investment in the new parking meters to training to implementation. How involved were you with that?
So we're very involved in the beginning. We had, we had a plan. You may remember, Council, Jesus, a little over a year now. It doesn't seem so, but we hired a consultant to come in and do an overall parking plan for us. And then we met with that consultant. And during those conversations, it made sense to look what other communities were doing, and everybody's moving toward kiosks. I personally, it was a proponent of them because I find when I go to places, if I go into Boston, I go into Cambridge, it's far more convenient for me to pull out my app. I don't really know how many people are rolling with the thing of quarters anymore. So I was a huge fan of the kiosk idea. Then of course, and I don't want to make it seem like COVID is like everybody my go-to excuse here, but it's
a good one.
It did. It might be. I know. Yeah, 100-year pandemic might not be a bad one. It kind of set that way back, not just on our end, really more so on the manufacturer's end. And I've talked. Mike Hill and I talk daily, and we recently had a meeting about rolling it out. And we're definitely going to. They're wrapped up now. There's a few things we need to square away, and then I know. Chris Sicaranza has been on top of this, and he's been organizing these meetings, and we have others planned. So it's not going to be a big surprise, for the community when these kiosks go live.
Okay. There's also a kiosk in an area where there was never any parking charges. There was never any meters there in the first place. So I'm just wondering too what the plan is with putting a multi-thousand-dollar machine in an area that never charged for parking.
Is that, I'm not sure which area you're speaking of, Council.
Over in front of Seaport Grill on Rogers Street.
I don't know I couldn't say that I was involved in the actual placement of.
Placement, okay.
I kind of keep the scope of my involvement strictly to enforcement. I like to have a separation between the two things.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Anybody have any further questions on police parking?
Chief, I know you were on with us last night on the meeting. In lieu of the emergency order and all the new no parking areas, I know you have 2 full-time meter people now. That's going to run weekdays, 7 days a week in those neighborhoods now. And I know you just talked about possibly bringing on another part-timer, but is that going to be necessary to enforce all that?
The answer I have for you today, Council, is I don't know. This is something that early on in this conversation, I had these conversations with CAO Jim Destino about whether or not I think he was more of the opinion that we want to scale now and be prepared for this when it hits, and then I'm just trying to understand the new technology. I'm thinking there might be some efficiencies there in us writing ticket where we might have a higher, ticket per hour rate with the new technology. We may even be able to buy some plate readers that kind of automate this stuff down the road. So I am open. When I was in Manchester, we did hire seasonal part-time parking enforcement. I am open to that idea. Yeah, but that's something I think we could do fairly quickly if we decide that that's the way to go, and just based on an ROI sort of calculation.
I'm just thinking that probably is something we ought to at least, through the administration, have a plan for, because like I say, we added 30 some odd roads last night that are 7-day-a-week violation areas now. So I really think it's going to tax your girls, especially during the week when one of them's off a couple of days, I think. So it might be something that we look at. I'm sure it's going to be money well spent if they're bringing in the revenue. So just maybe something for the administration and the police to look at together.
No, absolutely. It's been part of the plan. But just to give you by way of an example, with the new technologies, as I understand it, is what will happen is you have these handhelds like they have now, and you'll be able to walk past a car, scan the plate, and a handheld will tell you whether that vehicle is parked legally, is paid their parking paid their parking or not. And if not, you just press a single button and it spits out a ticket for that particular vehicle with the proper fine, and then put it on the windshield. So there's trying to understand that. But I think if we decide, particularly some of the more remote areas, up in Lanesville area, it could make a lot of sense for us to hire someone seasonally to do that. But we'll pivot if necessary to make that happen.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And one of the things, if you file the proper documentation with the state, having seasonal employees actually is not a detriment to the city. And again, when I say proper documentation for a seasonal employee, they're not able to file for unemployment if they were filed as a seasonal employee. So I think stuff like that needs to be done so we can provide you with the assistance seasonally and not worry about any further repercussions of that. So just something to look into. All right. Any further questions on police parking 218? I personally hope that you get that half person in as soon as possible to save everybody angst on parking situations. And I'm of the mind of John McCarthy is that it's going to pay for itself twofold. All right, so nothing further on 218. So the next department for the police department is on page 52, and that's Department 292, Police Animal Control.
So really nothing much here to discuss on animal control. These are all contractual raises. I know you see the 40%, but that's just a reflection of the small number and the fact that there are 2 employees. And one is now, based on their seniority, has triggered a increase in longevity. Otherwise, everything here is contractual.
Any questions or desire for a revisit on animal control? Chief, I know you weren't here when we added the second animal control a few years ago, and it actually was a big benefit to the city and for the residents that were complaining that there was not enough enforcement. So I'm glad to see that that is still running steady.
You know, it's really, I always refer to the animal control officers here as our unsung heroes, and they certainly are. They deal not only with a lot of difficult situations where there's not clear right or wrong answers, that, basically neighbor disputes for the most part, but they're also dealing with, different types of animals and sea creatures, and they work well. And I'll tell you, the thing that I am really happy about is that they're truly passionate about the work they do. This is what they want to be doing. In some places, you hire somebody as an animal control officer because they're waiting to do something else. And our 2 animal control officers, this is what they want to be doing, and that shows in their work.
Yeah. And it's a crazy environment for them to be in, with the dogs and the every other day and the odd and even. And, I don't have a dog, and people reach out to me all the time. Can I take my dog to Wingershik? And I'm like, I have no idea. I can't follow this stuff. It's like asking me about schools when I don't have a kid in the system. Like there's just so much room in my head that I can manage with information. I'm like, go to the DPW webpage, go to the police department, figure it out. So I feel like I should have a cheat sheet in my phone for these things. All right. Anybody have anything further for Chief Conley? Any of the departments, any revisits?
I'm good.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, now you get to listen to me for the next 10 minutes while I read motion. All right, I recommend City Council approve FY22 appropriations for police administration as follows. Personnel services, $584,109. Ordinary maintenance, $59,863 for a total of $643,972, and I so move.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 211, Police Uniform. I recommend the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for police uniform as follows. Personal services, $5,664,029. Ordinary maintenance, $197,267. Capital outlay, $110,552 for a total of $5,971,848. And I so move.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 212. I recommend City Council approve FY22 appropriations for police criminal investigation as follows. Personal services, $503,128. Ordinary maintenance, $2,450 for a total of $505,578. And I so move.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 216. I recommend the City Council approve the FY22 appropriation for police harbors as follows. Personal services, $31,722. Ordinary maintenance, $13,000 for a total of $44,722. And I so move.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 218, police parking. I recommend the city council approve FY 22 appropriations for police parking as follows. Personal services, 136,301, ordinary maintenance, 400, for a total of 136,701, and I so move.
second,
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
yes,
Counselor Memhard,
yes,
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. Department 292, Police Animal Control. I recommend the city council approve FY 22 appropriations for police animal control as follows. Personal services, 127,953. Ordinary maintenance, 8,000, for a total of 135,953, and I so move.
second,
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
yes,
Counselor Memhard,
yes,
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Chief. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful vacation. And don't worry about us. We got this.
a nice
Lieutenant
Chardonnay.
Castro will take good care of us.
No doubt. Madam Chairwoman, if you don't mind me just 1 second acknowledging the work of Stacy Nicastro. I know John Dunn and Kenny and I'm sure Grace all know that, and certainly Council McCarthy know that she does the boatload of work here when it comes to putting this budget together. And
Is that who is sitting with you? I see half a person.
my legal counsel just over my right shoulder, whispering the answers in my ear, for sure.
Yes, I'm sure. Behind every good man is a great woman.
Yes, exactly.
All right,
Thanks.
yes, Stacy does amazing work, so I appreciate you giving her a shout out.
Okay,
So,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
good day.
All right, so the next department up, for some reason I don't have my watch on. We're a little ahead of time, so thank you, Chris, for making sure that Chief Smith was in line and waiting for his opportunity to share with us his wisdom about his budget.
Yay.
All right. So the fire department starts on page 39. Give everybody a second to get there. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, good. Hanging in there. All right, so fire and emergency management starts on page 51. And we will be covering everything. If you want to give us a brief, we'll go through it, not line by line, but section by section. If you have anything that you need to draw to our attention, if it's ordinary contractual obligations, you don't really have to go over that. If there's anything crazy, please feel free to draw that to our attention.
Yeah, there really is nothing that jumps out in this budget. This is the 9th one for me to submit to the city and council, and so there's really no surprises. It's kind of the blueprint we've been working off of. Some modifications in there and adjustments. The one that sort of jumps out, if you will, just based on the numbers, but not historically. Right on the first piece of the personnel would be the overtime for training on 513001 account, and it shows that 36.4% increase. That's really just putting that number back to where it's typically been. We shortened that up and lessened that up because we had so much funding under FEMA and their training that they approved that we didn't have to put it in this account. That money was actually in a separate account to do the FEMA match and came out of our budget that way. So it's just kind of, it's not really apples to apples, but sort of is. So we're pretty much on par with where we've been. I don't really, if you have some specific questions, I can certainly answer those for you. But like I said, there's not anything that really is huge jumps and changes. It's really pretty much the same as last year and the many years before. And again, there's been some minor tweaks in there just because of the way grant funding has jumped in, and some of the use of those funds hasn't always happened because of COVID and its impact on the ability to do various trainings and those expenses. So I would entertain any particular questions you have. I think would probably be easier than me just kind of running through it and blathering on.
I like the way you work. Does anybody have any specific questions for Chief Smith regarding the fire department personnel, ordinary or capital outlay?
Chief, maybe just clarify the large number in salaries. It's multi-year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So the 8.9% is reflective of, they were out of contract for, what was it, John, 2.5 years?
Yeah, so
you're
this really reflects a 3-year jump. So again, these percentage numbers come off this current year's original budget and the increase as proposed for next year. So this really incorporates the whole 3 years of the contract.
And you'll see that through every one of the lines that actually is impacted and calculated based on their hourly wage, right? So they had 3 years worth of, contractual raises that now impact that whole salaries piece. For their base salaries, it's going to impact holiday pay. It's going to impact many other things that are specific to those individuals that hold those positions, and that we calculate, nearly to the penny for those costs in those individual line items.
All right, anything further, Counselor Memhard, Counselor Gilman? All right, yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. Knowing that we've had many transfers throughout the years to cover the contractual stuff and filling in those gaps for not having a contract in place. I look forward to someday always having a rhythm with the contracts so we don't have to do this. But,
Yeah, and I think the union is on. Yeah, I think the union's on board with that, and we talked about this with John and the rest of admin during the last negotiation, is trying to get ahead of this next one and get it done on time and on target, so we don't have retros and these what appears to be big jumps that are just really making up for lost time, if you will, in getting this done and staying current. To me, staying current is way simpler. I like to be ahead of the curve, not behind it. It's, my OCD, it just is frustrating for me. So. Yes,
I agree. All right. So are there any requests for a revisit for the fire department 220? Any further questions? All right. So I recommend that the city council approve FY22 appropriations for fire prevention and suppression as follows. Personal services, $9,269,983. Ordinary maintenance, $748,070. Capital outlay, $109,435 for a total of $10,127,488. And I so move.
Second.
I can see Kenny watching my numbers as I say them to make sure that I'm saying them correctly.
I'm trying to keep up and get to the right page and do the same thing.
Don't worry, Kenny's got your back. Trust me.
Yes, he does.
If I say a number wrong, and we have all eyeballed the motions template probably 5 times. So now he's just worried about me saying the number wrong, which now, trust me, I did that 1 year and Kenny caught me right away. Thank goodness. All right. Anything further on these, especially the big numbers like yours? All right, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Cox, yes, motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. I just want to mention that Sue is also on the call. As I
Yep.
mentioned earlier with the police department, behind every department head, there is a strong assistant behind them. So as with Chief Conley and Stacy, Chief Smith has Sue. So welcome, Sue.
Yeah, she is absolutely our financial anchor. We would be adrift without, trust me.
Yes. All right. So your next department is emergency management on page 51, Department
Yep.
291.
And I'll handle that for Bob. Bob's down dealing with that hazmat drill with the Marine and state hazmat team. And he was expecting the 10 o'clock, so he's down there doing his thing. And I told him, I said, hey, don't worry about it, I got it.
Ah, you're the best. All right.
So same on this one. If anything, this one is probably even closer to identical as previous years. I'm taking a quick look, reviewing it, and it looks like it's penny for penny, really no change. Structurally within that, we'll see how things go with the funding that we get again from the state with grants and kind of filling in some of the pieces here and there. Obviously, we didn't expend the funding with Carol working full-time through the health department for that assistant position, although she still, was right there backing Bob up, so there's some funding there, obviously, for the city to determine what to do with to fill in. I know we'll probably still have a little red ink due to those contractual increases and the things that John works at every year at the end of the year, balancing it out. So going forward next year, I expect that we will be filling that position and that it's going to be back to kind of business as usual for emergency management with that role being filled by an assistant that's actually taking that salary or that contractual salary, if you will.
Great, thank you. Any further questions from anybody regarding emergency management?
No.
Okay. I recommend the city council approve FY22 appropriations for fire emergency management as follows. Ordinary maintenance, $50,262. Capital outlay, $2,500 for a total of $52,762, and I so move.
Second.
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Tell Bob I hope he has fun playing with the hazmat.
Yeah, well, he's down there rubbing elbows, making sure it all goes well. That's training a little above and beyond what most of the folks do around here, and this one's got a big Marine component to it, so it's a specialty thing. We help them out, kind of hosting it every year, and TJ, jumped in again to do what he does on the water side to make that happen. So good effort with that. I want to thank everybody, all you guys, for your time, especially Sue, and kind of put a plug in there for Bob. He jumped right into the frying pan while it was on fire, and he has done absolutely awesome in his new role as assistant chief. I couldn't be happier. So we've done well filling those jobs, and if you see our folks out on the street, give them a pat on the back. They've been taking a pounding the last 6 months with training nonstop, and I think I've got them all pretty well burnt out right now, right before summer comes, which is good. So they can do the usual, summer vacation thing and catch their breath and get caught up. But we'll be wrapping up those 2 huge FEMA grants by the end of June. And then I'll be pushing to get all the reimbursement stuff to make Kenny happy and getting the money back from the feds, which is a ton of work. Again, huge thanks to Sue for keeping me squared away on that. So we'll hopefully have all that stuff wrapped up shortly into the next fiscal year to close all those things out, hopefully in advance of of the closeout for the books for Kenny so he can work his magic on the free cash. But I'm doing everything I can on that. It's just been insane with COVID. So
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate your staff and everybody's hard work. I understand you have a new fire inspector as well.
we do. So Tommy Sayas has jumped in as a fire inspector. He's been a lieutenant since the beginning of the changeover from the old schedule to the new, and inputting, you know, officers on every fire apparatus. So he's got, I don't know, 30-ish years on the job, thereabouts. Knowledgeable guy, been involved in fire prevention since way back, and has filled in that capacity when we've had a lot of work and gaps. So it's going great. You know, he's liking the job. It's creating some stability. Obviously, you know, from the other side of your life, the impact it has when fire prevention is got gaps. And so I have one more big change to make in that area to try to improve things and get it where I think it should be. It's only taken me almost a decade to finally get there to the point of doing it. You know, Rome wasn't built
How
in
long
a
have
day,
you
but
been
I'm
with
still
us?
working. It'll be 9 years in July,
Wow.
unless somebody throws me out of here before then. But, you know, I'll still be living in town. I got a house. What am I going to do, right?
Right.
All
Yeah,
right. Well, hey, unless you guys have any other questions, Bob just walked in. So we're all set, Bob. We got her done. No worries.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
all
thanks
smiles
for
now.
participating, Bob. So, does anybody have anything further? We are like an hour ahead of schedule. So if anybody has any questions for Chief Smith, feel free.
I'm
Good to
trying
see
to
you,
see
Chief.
if the DPW is going to be able to join early and getting Adam a little earlier too, Counselor. So just a heads
Okay,
up.
yeah, I was gonna say if DPW is not ready, I mean, we have John as a captive audience, so we can fill in the gaps with his stuff whenever we have downtime. So don't tell the department heads to kill themselves getting their appointed time if they're
Okay.
not able to.
Just
So-
trying to see who's around to be flexible for
Yep.
you. So I'll keep you
Nope,
posted.
that sounds good. Yeah, if DPW is not ready, I mean, ComDev, John, that's about it. So if anybody wants to go earlier than DPW, we can certainly swing that.
Okay, it looks like Adam said he'll be around 10:30 or so is where he could be the earliest. So if there's flexibility
Okay.
there, just to give him a heads up.
All right, is it DPW getting ready, or should we call ComDev?
I just reached out to Jill, the ComDev, to see if she wanted to go early. Mike was wrapping up, I think, a doctor's appointment. So
Okay, all right. John, if you let's see.
So, Madam Chair, are you good with me,
Yes.
counselors, everybody?
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you
I'm
very
off to the
much.
next thing. All
Good
right,
to
we'll
see you,
guys.
Chief.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. John, done?
Yep, we can go to treasurer collector on page 11.
Okay. All right,
Okay, so.
go ahead.
As you've heard before, most of the information here in the first section for personnel expenditures is contractually driven. We're a little bit light on the salary line in terms of the increase. Normally, we're looking at around 2.5% a year. What we have is we had a retirement in this fiscal year, and we're not exactly sure how we're going to contend with that next year. We budgeted for it, but at a lesser salary, because the incumbent who retired was pretty much at the top of the scale. So that's why we have a 1.3% increase in salaries. We also had the incumbent also had longevity, which is no longer there. So again, the total impact is essentially that when we look at it, the total increase in personnel expenditures is only 1.3% for the year.
Which position retired, John?
Jackie Sanborn. So that position was senior accounting clerk.
Okay. Have you filled that position yet?
Not as yet, but we are interviewing internal candidates at this
Good.
point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems like we keep missing the retirements. So I had no idea. It's been a while since I've been in your office.
Well, yeah, it's tough to get into this office, although probably a little bit easier starting next week. But
Yes.
yeah, it was, things are different now than they were. There is, except for selling beach stickers, the ins and outs to City Hall are much less than they used to be. People are mailing in their payments or making them electronically. Whereas before the pandemic, it was a little bit of a social gathering. People had a reason to come in to pay 4 tax bills, 4 water and sewer bills, a couple of excise tax bills, and they would come in, essentially once a month and have a little chit chat.
Yes.
So those days are pretty much over. It's much more difficult having a chit chat when you're talking through plexiglass and 2 masks. So.
Yes. And I have to give you props. I have not heard or seen any complaints about beach stickers this year. So everybody is handling that like a champ. The new mail-in process seems to be working quite rapidly. If anything, I've seen more compliments on Facebook regarding beach stickers and the lack of waiting period between the application and the return of the sticker. So great job for you and your staff.
Yeah, they've done well with it. We actually brought on an extra person this year to help us deal with the beach stickers. We generally do that every year, but we increased it by 1, anticipating that most of it was going to get done through the mail. So we didn't need to turn these around. And we're pretty much on top of it. So, we were fortunate to be able to track the mail as it came in by day, and we processed, the various envelopes by day. So we pretty much stayed on top of it through the whole thing. Done well.
Good.
Yeah, very happy with them.
Yeah, and we're keeping the postal service busy with our mail, so that's good.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody's got to keep them guys employed and busy with all of Amazon taking over the world.
Okay.
All right.
So that's personnel. Ordinary, no change in ordinary. There's a little bit of seasonality to our ordinary expenditures. So for example, we will have an uptick in legal costs as we file and send information to the registry on tax title. But again, we should be good. So again, that 0% increase in ordinary, and also 0% increase for bond issuance costs. So total department is up a hair under 1% year to year.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for treasurer collector? Any revisit requests?
No.
Okay. I recommend the city council approve FY22 appropriations for the treasurer collector as follows. Personal services, $680,551. Ordinary maintenance, $217,375. Debt service, $44,225 for a total of $942,151. And I so move.
Second.
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. Do you have anything else in there for you, John, that we can fill in?
Yeah, we can go to debt service,
Okay,
page 86. Okay, so on page 86, on the surface, this looks like very good news. So debt service is down year to year 12%. However, as we talked about last week when we were reviewing revenues, this is really due to a number of debt issues associated with sewer betterments that ran off all at the same time. And what happens is that basically betterment revenue supports betterment debt. So as we saw on the revenue side, that betterment transfer in decreased by about $1.2 million. And that is essentially what happens here in debt service. So we have it happen on both sides, both revenue and expenditures being reduced by $1.2 million year to year. So, you know, again, while this looks very appealing on the surface, there is something that happens on the other side. Other than that, we're we're in reasonably good shape. As we've talked about a little bit in the recent past, we'll do a more comprehensive debt review sometime this summer, just to bring the council up to date on where we are. We do manage the debt. And it's complicated. There's the city has a lot of debt, and the way it used to issue it made it even more complicated. But you know, at this point, it looks like the city can essentially afford, based on current interest rates, to issue about $5 million worth of debt a year and keep that debt service from increasing year to year at somewhere around 2.5%. So you know, we monitor how the debt runs off and what the impact is and how much we can then issue and stay reasonably within a reasonable budget increase from year to year.
That's amazing. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody has any questions about debt, but that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of where we are.
Can you take some of my personal debt?
Sure. Oh, you mean and actually pay it?
Yeah, you know, I'm getting there.
Good, good.
It's mainly the house at this point. So
Usually is, yes.
yes. Long gone are the days of disposable income once you own a house, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but that's very important, Counselor, you know, and that's an interesting point. I mean, that, you know, people wonder why sometimes, you know, the cities and towns have the type of debt they have. Well, we have buildings, we have big buildings, we have expensive buildings. And if you don't maintain them, just like if you don't maintain your house, you're going to be in trouble. So, you know, a roof has to be done, windows have to be done, exteriors, interior, HVAC, plumbing, you know, you have to keep up with it. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a lot more, or you're going to have to replace a building.
Yes, I'm learning that in my personal life, my work life outside of council, you know, working with construction over the last 3 years, and you know, the cost, you guys have it a little differently too, in addition to just maintaining multiple buildings that are hundreds of years old, and maintaining the character and the bones of such buildings. But you also have to deal with labor costs that are not ordinary. You also have to do material sourcing. I mean, it's just different from a municipality. And when people look at it from their own personal level, it's so much different. So yeah, it's just not as easy as what people think that it should be. So
No, but it keeps us on our toes.
yes, and you are managing your house very well, I think, with the amount of debt service and our capability and our bond rating and everything. So we appreciate your hard work with you and your staff.
Thank you.
And again, we have a department head that has amazing backup in the form of Grace. So again, thank you, Grace, for making sure that John is always on point.
Not a problem.
So, all right, does anybody have any questions regarding debt service?
John, I know you were trying to get together a building maintenance committee. How is that progressing with all the major renovations that need to be done?
Well, Mike Hale and I talk quite a bit. We have the Capital Improvement Advisory Board, which will be meeting with, once we kind of clear the decks on the budget. So to talk to Ted Costa. So we'll be meeting sometime probably at the end of June, early July, again, kind of laying out where we are and what we see as the big needs for the next 5 years out. So again, hopefully we'll have that meeting with them prior to a presentation to the council on just debt issues in general. And we'll kind of combine that presentation to cover both where we are and where we think we need to be over the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Thank you, John.
Any further questions? All right. I recommend the city council approve the FY 22 appropriations for debt service as follows. Ordinary maintenance, 10,548,781 for a total of the same. And I so move.
Second,
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Great. I do see that we have a representative from DPW with us.
Counselor,
DPW,
I know that I'm pretty sure Mike is the phone number that needs to be moved over as an attendee.
Yeah, I think Mike's planning on taking the lead on this. I just came in early because they said they were running ahead of schedule.
okay, give
Yeah,
me
the
1
360
second.
number there.
Yeah, I'm pulling it in.
Sorry, yep.
I feel like this is a seance. Mike, can you hear me? Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning.
If
How
you
are
need a
you?
little bit of time to get to your office, we can certainly move forward with a different department. If you're close, I mean,
No, I had a physician's appointment, doctor's appointment this morning, so I pulled over on 128, and I didn't have cell service where I pulled over, so I found cell service. So I have everything with me.
okay. All right, as long as you're comfortable and ready to move forward, we can move forward. But seriously, if you need a little bit of time to get to your office, that's fine too.
I am in good shape, Madam Chair. Just trying to turn to the right page in the budget.
Okay, so DPW starts on page 55.
Yep. Okay. Solid waste.
All right, so Mike, what we're gonna do is similar format to last year. We're just gonna roll through all your departments. We'll stop in between departments to ask the committee if they have any questions, requests for revisit. But I will make the motions at the end just to keep the presentation rolling. If you have anything major that needs to be brought to our attention, please do so. If it's ordinary contractual obligations, then it is what it is, and we get through this painlessly and quickly.
Okay. Do you want to call out those contract variations, or you can see them on your own?
I think we can see them on their own. If there's anything big, like, 10, 24% increase, anything crazy like that, definitely give us a reason. But for the most part, I think we're going to be good to go.
Okay. So we'd like to start in Department 403, solid waste.
Correct.
Okay. So this is just one of those budgets that has about a 5% increase due to contractual change. The collection fee and the tipping fee, as well as the seasonal barrel pickup, are all contractual increases, which drove that to a 5% increase.
What year are we in our contract with JRM?
Probably 6 or 7.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we're in year 6.
Year 6, yeah.
great.
We have a favorable contract still, probably one of the better on the North Shore, which makes me nervous about next time.
I bet it does. And the costs are definitely not going up. If anything, recycling is more of a hindrance anymore, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody have any questions on Department 403?
No.
All right, moving forward to page 57, Department 411.
Department 411 is our engineering division of Public Works. It's mostly personnel, some minor, ordinary copier maintenance, leases, a little bit of outside help for some work they do. It's an increase of a nominal amount. It looks like a decrease in the line item. I have an increase. Oh, excuse me. It's a decrease of $328. Excuse me.
Yeah.
That's due to higher retirement of one engineer and replacement of two of the engineers.
Great. Congratulations to Ryan for getting that promotion. Well deserved.
And he's also a new father
What?
this week or
Awesome.
late last week, early this week. His wife had a child.
Boy or girl?
We haven't heard from him other than he told us everyone's doing well. So I just left it at
Okay.
that. The new father, didn't want to overwhelm him.
He had a baby boy.
Boy, okay.
Oh, good. Well, awesome. I can't wait to congratulate him. All right. Anybody have any questions on 411? All right, moving forward. Department 421, Public Works Admin, page 59.
That is a very small increase of $763 as a result of employee contract increases, annual increases.
All right. Anybody have any questions? 421. Pretty straightforward. All right. Wow. We're gonna be done by noon today. Goodness gracious. All right. Page 61, Department 423, snow removal, our favorite topic.
We maintain snow and ice at the dollar amount shown in the past few years' budgets. I think we go back a couple of years, we've increased it, but it's enough to start us, enough for maybe an underperforming winter, but certainly not enough for an overperforming winter. But we all know at this point why we under budget for this, because we can, and we try to fill it with other departmental funds if necessary, and or John works his magic after a really bad winter. But that is no change in the.
All right. Anybody have any questions on 423, snow removal? Any requests for revisits? All right, seeing none. Page 63, DPW Public Services.
Public Services, 470. As you recall, Public Services is the traditional public works, highway, beaches, parks, cemeteries, forestry. They've all been collapsed into one division called Public Services. There is an overall increase in this particular budget of $40,000 plus or minus. Personnel increases are $21,000. It's us trying to manage our part-time and full-time employees in a more beneficial way. So we have a full-time decrease by 40, but a part-time increase of $59,500. The ordinary budget is increased by just over $18,000. We increased our police details by 5, supplies by 4,000, and we added a little bit more for street signs and cones of 5,000. And that number is all dependent on how many signs are installed in any given year. The past few years, that numbers, we spent more than 5,000 on temporary signs in 2020, and we'll probably spend somewhere in the tune of $30,000 to $40,000 this year in signs. So it's a smaller line item than it needs to be, but we make the best of it, and we try to just work within the existing budget framework. So again, public services, an overall increase of $40,001. It's split roughly between personnel and ordinary, not quite 50-50, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, well, the order that we passed last night will eat up the rest of your budget for this year, and probably eat up the rest of your entire budget for next year. So I hope John is able to work his magic for you in that sense this year. So
will
if you
make it
haven't
work.
watched, if you haven't watched the meeting or know of it yet, good luck.
And it was passed with an emergency order, thanks to
So-
Melissa.
So it
So you
goes
gotta
into
do that
effect
tomorrow,
immediately.
Mike.
Yeah, and again, we have Memorial Day coming up, so the signs will be put up once we get through this holiday weekend, because this is going to take probably the whole division to get these up in a timely fashion, not just the one employee that we have that does signs.
Yeah, so, sorry.
It is.
Maybe Chief Conley will share his ticket revenue with you to put into the budget for the signs. I think that's a pretty good compromise for this year. Yes, John, I know that's not how it works. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Department 470, Public Services. All right, I have to say, in my opinion, DPW is one of the most worked departments with the worst budget possible for the things that the public and the counselors and the administration asks of them. So Mike and Mark do an amazing job. Joe Lucido as well. They do an amazing job with what we are able to give them. So I appreciate all of everybody's work for DPW. All right.
Thank you.
Hey, if my cat would get off my budget book, that'd be great. Department 472, DPW Facilities Maintenance, page 67.
So facilities is a catch-all for all public buildings, including the public school building maintenance that we provide across the public school system. This has historically been a grossly underfunded budget, but with this administration, this council, we've seen increases annually to kind of get us to where we need to be in our public school buildings and our public offices. So the facilities budget does increase slightly this year by $123,000, which is relatively small relative to the budget. And the lion's share of that is personnel increases. We have over $100,000 in contractual increases. We offset that by decreasing our part-time staff. And because our workforce is a little bit younger, some of our longevity is less. So we increased full-time staffing by 103 for a total increase of personnel of 102. And that's offset by some decreases, like I said, in longevity and some part-time staff that we are moving away from and for full-time staff. Ordinary,
Okay.
Relatively static. It's a $20,000 increase. And we looked at our HVAC maintenance. You know, we invested over $1 million in HVAC improvements in 2020. We need just a little bit more on some filter replacements, so we increased the budget by $3,200. We have some elevator maintenance increases of $3,600. That's just the age of our elevators and the frequency of visits from the elevator maintenance facility company. Let's see, we have an increase in building rentals of just over $6,000. And we increased our alarm service maintenance contract by $5,000. Again, the age of our alarms and just the frequency of visits necessitated that we increase that slightly versus just robbing it from another line item, mid-year. So again, it's not a significant increase, but it is an increase nevertheless.
Anybody have any questions for that department? Okay. Moving on to page 71, Department 499, DPW Central Services.
So central services, if you're not familiar with it, that's our mechanics division, our fuel for the part of our fuel for the fueling station down at Public Works, and also our supplies come out of central services. Overall budget increase of just over $10,000. It's a $2,900 personnel increase and an ordinary increase to make up the balance of that. So it's not a significant increase, but again, it is an increase. Some contractual increases in there in staff and some additional ordinary.
Any questions on that department by anyone? Comments, questions, remarks? All right. All right, so that's it for the regular DPW departments. We are going to move on to water, which is in the back of the book, section 5, the first department.
Sure. Okay, so the Water Enterprise Fund has an overall budget increase of $255,000. Let's see, what that's comprised of about $57,000 in personnel, and about $52,000 in ordinary, $136,000 plus or minus in debt service. So again, the enterprises support the loan authorization paybacks for the various capital work. And we increased our capital outlay by $10,000 to kind of capture some of the necessary, capital repair and maintenance projects that go on during the year within that fund. When I first began, the ordinary for both water and sewer was capped at $500,000, and now it's significantly less than that, and we maintain it significantly less than that. We borrow when necessary versus budget for it, which it works, but there is a need to be able to move quickly on some broken components, worn components, whatever it may be, at the water filtration plants and within the distribution system, which that money covers.
Any questions on the water department from anyone?
Mike, I know we put through a loan order this year for water meters. Is that work been done, or is that still in process, or?
I know we transferred some water money. I don't think it was a loan order. John, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was some retained earnings or we captured some previous authorizations. I am cleaned out of meter stock as of today. So whatever was purchased was installed. We went through a pretty robust large meter replacement program 2 years ago. The rate of return on these meters was anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. So they've already paid for themselves. We don't charge the businesses with purchasing new meters. We replace them. It's really difficult to compel them to change if they're paying for it. They're a little more apt to swap out if we're paying for it. But with a rate of return of 6 to 18 months on a $3,000 meter, you can imagine the revenue increases we have from these, or the increase, we're capturing what was truly owed to us. The next bit will be some of the large complexes like the Heights of Cape Ann. They have meters that are in excess of 20, 25 years old. They're probably running at probably a 70% efficiency rate at this point just due to their age. We will swap those out and we'll gain 30% in revenue for that one complex alone within 14 months based on a calculation on rate of return. So we need to continue with meter replacements, Counselor. We haven't had a very robust meter replacement program until recently. And prior to that, it was before my time here in Public Works, which has been 23 years.
Okay, I remember that coming before us. I was just curious whether we've got that done, Mike, that's all.
Everything that we authorized was spent, Counselor, on meters.
That's good to hear. So, yeah. I don't think it was a loan order. I think it was a transfer.
Yeah.
It was yes, it was a transfer, and we'll probably go back, once a year or so, I take a look at the capital projects, and what we'll do is if we've underexpended in a particular project after we borrowed, we'll kind of bring that money forward and dedicate it to meters in both water and sewer.
Great.
Thank you.
Anything further on the water department? The water rate, according to my motion, is going to be set at $9.36, which is an increase of 4.23% over the FY21 water rate of $8.98. So 38 cents per 1,000 gallon. Does anybody have any questions on that? All right. All right, the next department is the next tab in that same section, sewer, Department 440.
The Sewer Enterprise Fund has an overall budget increase of just under $280,000. There is just under $70,000 in personnel increases, and that's a mix of full-time staffing, contractual increases in pay, and then some various benefits that are plus and minus depending on the age of the workforce as far as longevity, sick leave incentive, insurance obviously has risen. Ordinary is up by $190,000. Roughly half of that is the contract to Veolia, our contract operator at the wastewater treatment plant. There's necessity to improve some electrical components at the wastewater treatment plant. When we're earmarking $50,000 for that, it's a start. It's certainly not going to be all inclusive for 50, but it's certainly a start for us. And there's an upgrade of a generator for $20,000 and some additional pump station work, as well as some capital outlay increase of 50 for spare pumps for our 29 wastewater pumping stations. When those pumps wear, they're inefficient. They don't move the water in the volume that they need to, which means that the runtime of the pumps increases dramatically, which requires electricity. So our electrical costs go down as we replace these pumps to make these facilities more efficient. They handle wet weather conditions much better. During a very, very heavy rain, some of our oldest stations really get bogged down with the flow because they still have some inundation into the sewer mains, especially in East Gloucester. And we wound up having to supplement the pump station pumping with a pump truck that moves the wastewater from one pump station to another location in the city, which then flows by gravity to the wastewater plant. And that could be, that could be a $10,000 to $20,000 weekend for us with a pump truck. So investing in the pumps is money well spent.
All right. Anything further on sewer? Any questions? So based on the motion that I have here for the sewer rate, it's going to go up to $16.16, an 85-cent increase, 5.5% increase. Does anybody have any questions on that?
John, any idea what that would be to a individual household on the water and sewer increases?
Again, it all depends on what their usage is. So if somebody's using 20 units a year, that's $20. So, or 20 units a quarter. That's It's not a lot, John. We've been pretty lucky that, you know, we've kind of been able to manage this. We've had a little bit more of a jump this year than in past years, you know, but pretty much over the past 6 or 7 years, we've been averaging about 3%, which really is pretty good based on some projections that I had seen dating back to, you know, 2009. So I think, you know, there's going to be some that jump a little bit more in a particular year, usually based on debt. You know, the rest of it flows along pretty well, but it all depends on when we issue some debt and when that comes on. But you know, at 3% a year for, you know, for the past 6 or 7 years, I think we're doing pretty well.
Thank you, John.
All right. Anybody have any further questions regarding the sewer rate? Sewer rate, water rate, anything? All right, moving on. Same tab, Talbot Rink.
So as you know, Talbot Rink is my third enterprise that Public Works manages. 2020 was certainly a challenging year, and 21, beginning of it, has been a challenging year. You know, there was a lot of restrictions on ice time sales and use of the facility. The rink managed very, very well. We have a great staff there. We actually rented to, and our savior was a lot of other rinks were closed, and Mark was able to sell that ice time to other organizations without displacing our own organization. And people would take up any ice slot that was available. And so we made the most out of the pandemic restrictions. I think we did pretty well. Not as well as we needed to, but we still did okay. The overall budget for the next fiscal year is a decrease of just over $6,000. That's relative to, we have a long-time FTE who is retiring this summer. And this position is backfilled already with another full-time employee who will segue into that role. And then we'll backfill the remainder with part-time employees and just try to manage that budget as close to what we're asking for as possible. And I think we can do it. So again, it's an overall piece of $6,000 for the enterprise fund of the Talbot Rink.
When is that retirement happening?
It's not set in stone, so I hesitate to give a date, but we were told that it's going to this summer. Obviously, you know, the retirement board has to take some action, and that's usually predicated on the employee being vigilant in getting all their paperwork in to the retirement board on time. It does take a little bit of effort for Doug to retire somebody. In this situation, it's not a disability retirement or an accident. It's just going to be a time to go retirement. And so those are a little bit easier for him to manage. But it's slated for July, but I can't promise anything happens because it's not my call to force anyone in or out.
Right. No. It's I'm just would like to congratulate that person.
When we know, Counselor, we will let you know so that can be done for the city. He's a valuable employee to the city.
Yes, definitely. All right. Anybody have any questions on Talbot Rink?
Yeah, John, the rink has shown up on our overdraft every month of this year. Is that been dealt with in the current proposed budget?
Yeah, again, Counselor, like we do in the past, we'll move some dollars around to solve that at the end of the year. I have a little bit of concern, as Mike had said. You know, even though we filled in, revenues are off this year as compared to past years, and it's likely to continue a bit into fiscal 2022. One of the interesting things is that with the ARPA funds as approved and as the legislation was written, we can use some of those funds to solve revenue issues that are directly attributable to the pandemic. And what you'd be doing is looking back at your last, for example, 12 months of regular operations and saying, what was the impact from then until 12 months operating under pandemic conditions, and then being able to use some of those ARPA funds to fill in that gap, that differential. I think Talbot Rink is a perfect example of how you would use that, and something that is fairly easy to measure by just looking at, for example, what was the average of the past 3 years of regular operations in terms of revenue versus the current 12 months or the most recent 12 months of the pandemic. So there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here. It's not solvable right this very moment, but it should be solvable in the long term.
Thank you, John.
John, is ARPA going to be kind of like St. Peter's parking lot where we have more need than holes to fill the needs?
It's certainly a possibility, Melissa. I mean, the ARPA legislation is aimed $23 million at the, city of Gloucester. It's becoming a little bit clearer as to what we can spend it on, but it's not completely clear yet. And sometimes with these things, it depends on who you ask. So, I have found a question I have asked 2 different sources. I got 2 different answers. So this will still be a little bit unclear for a while. And, one of the things that the funds are aimed at is water and sewer infrastructure. And as we know, depending on how much we can expend on that and what types of projects we can do, those will chew things up pretty fast.
Yeah, it's times like this where it's, we definitely have enough need still, but we've done so much proactive work with the water and sewer departments that, maybe our need isn't as big as, say, Rockport's need, who haven't done combined sewer overflow and preventative maintenance and stuff like that. So, I know Mike and Mark have plenty of jobs that they can earmark this to, but I just want to point out that DPW is extremely proactive in moving the city forward. And I know it costs us money as taxpayers, but these are such important projects and everything. So I'm proud of the work that they're doing and being proactive with meter replacement and stuff like that. So we are not having a huge amount of lost revenue. So I can't say enough good things about the DPW with what we managed to give them and what they're able to pull out with that. It's huge.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody have anything further for DPW? Any requests for revisits, questions, anything before we move on for motions?
None from me. Just thank you, Mike and your staff. You're very responsive to our requests, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
All right, so I'm gonna spend the next few minutes just rolling through the motions. If there's no objection to doing the motions for DPW at the end, towards the end of the meeting, and then we can go ahead and get on with the rest of our presentations. How does the committee want to do this?
Yeah, it looks like we got Adam sitting in the bullpen here.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Okay. So Mike, I will read your motions towards the end of the meeting. I will let you know if anything pops up between now and then. We haven't had any requests for revisit or anything that crazy that might happen, but you never know. So I'll follow up with you if anything goes astray.
I appreciate it very much. And thank everyone.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike.
Take care, Mike.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.
All right. So we'll move on with the presentation from the Veterans Department. I hate to keep Adam waiting. He's got a big weekend ahead of him. So page 79, veterans benefits. Welcome, Adam. Basically, what we're going to do is same thing we did last year. We're just going to go through the department personnel, ordinary capital outlay. You have some special accounts. If you have anything that's crazy out of the norm, go ahead and bring it to our attention. But for the most part, if it's contractual obligations, you won't need to. So go ahead.
Yeah, so really, really no changes from last year. Contractual personal services increase, but that was about it from the personal service account increases. So there's nothing there on the personal end that increased. Everything else has remained the same.
Okay. Ordinary.
Ordinary, the only increase, so everything else again is the same except for other expenses. That one we requested an extra $1,000, and that is due to increased costs of the cemetery flags and the city flagpole flags. The cemetery flags are reimbursable from the Commonwealth at 75%. So whatever we spend, 75% in that is reimbursed on our cherry sheets anyways. And then the flags, I'm sure everyone would agree that those need to be maintained around the city. So that's the costs. Everything else has remained the same. I think we've over the last couple of years, we've done all of us have done a good job at finding where these budgets should be, and I think we found it, and we're in a good spot.
You guys put the flags out last week. Thank you for doing that. There was a lot of comments about missing medallions and flag holders. Is that within your budget to replace those? How is that handled?
So those are purchased by the individuals.
Okay.
We recommend that people buy the plastic ones, not the metal ones, because they're just more, the likelihood of getting taken are higher because they're metal and could be used for scrap metal. But it's unlikely that they would be taken. Sometimes they just, they just disappear in the winter. They get hit by the plows or snow pushed into them. There's various reasons, but yeah, people purchase those individually. The only one we purchase, and we purchased that through the donations account, are the ones for the veterans lot at Beechbrook.
Okay. Does the committee have any further questions for Adam regarding his budget? It's pretty straightforward.
Seems like every BNF meeting, Adam, you're coming in with donations. It was mentioned at our last meeting. I know you weren't there, but great job with that. It's really nice to hear people are donating to the veterans, and I'm sure it's you and your staff that are creating the goodwill of the public. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything further from the committee? Veterans? All right. I recommend the city council approve the FY22 appropriations for veterans benefit as follows. Personal services, $139,825. Ordinary maintenance, $380,393 for a total of $520,218, and I so move.
Second.
Further discussion, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you for your time, Adam.
Everyone.
All right. Man. One of these things, the live and learn things for next year is put page numbers on the bottom of the motions template, because flipping through these with different departments, or have the departments go in order. As I mentioned on the last meeting. So that institutional knowledge, Councilor Gilman, put page numbers. Because boy, am I flipping through these at a rapid rate. Okay. So we are waiting for ComDev to come on. So if I might as well go ahead and whip out some of these DPW motions while we're waiting. Plenty of things to fill the time. All right. Did I lose Counselor Memhard? Or we can take a 5-minute break. How about a
I'm he-
5-minute break?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and roll through these DPW motions while we're waiting for ComDev to join us. If that's okay, if everybody's good with that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I recommend City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW solid waste disposal and recycling as follows. Personal services, 20,000. Ordinary maintenance, 2,350,117 for a total of 2,370,117, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Yes, motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 411, I recommend the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW engineering as follows. Personal services, 54,898. Ordinary maintenance, 9,247 for a total of 64,145, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, seeing none. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 421, I recommend the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW Public Works Administration as follows. Personal services, 118,093. Ordinary maintenance, 15,790 for a total of 133,883, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 423, I recommend City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW snow and ice removal as follows. Personal services, 141,500. Ordinary maintenance, 590,100. Capital outlay, 35,000 for a total of 766,600. And I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, seeing none. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Yes, motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 470. I recommend the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW Public Services as follows. Personal services, 1,599,021. Ordinary maintenance, getting tongue-tied. $449,080. Capital outlay, 50,000 for a total of 2,098,101, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 472. I recommend the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for DPW facilities maintenance as follows. Personal services, 2,700,380. Ordinary maintenance, 2,979,217 for a total of 5,679,597, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Department 499, I recommend the city council approve FY 22 appropriations for DPW central services as follows. Personal services, 157,936. Ordinary maintenance, 864,650. Capital outlay, 7,025, for a total of 1,029,611, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, seeing none. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes, motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. All right. Department 450, water. I recommend the city council approve the total FY 22 water enterprise appropriations as follows. Personal services, 1,803,740. Ordinary maintenance, 3,077,330. Capital outlay, 239,421. Debt service, 2,202,704, for a total of 7,323,195, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, none. Roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. I do see that Jill is with us, but I'm going to finish with the water enterprise before we move on to ComDev. I recommend the city council approve the FY 22 water enterprise revenues as follows. Total revenue, 7,323,195, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion. Roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 approved. All right. I recommend the city council approve the FY 22 water rate of $9.36 per 1,000 gallons for a 12-month billing period effective July 1st, 2021, retroactive to April 1st, 2021, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. And again, that is a 38 cents increase over FY 21 rate of $8.98 per 1,000 gallons. So I will get back to the rest of the DPW motions after we take a presentation by Community Development, and that would start on page 25 of our lovely book. Welcome, Jill Cahill.
Thank you. This is quite a day. Ready, I'm ready. Laura Ventum, I'm gonna say it wrong. Laura from Gloucester 400 is the person who I am currently meeting with, and I told her, I said, well, I'm gonna jump and do budget, and then you'll come back in, and I said, I'll let them know. And she said, yes, let them know to support the Gloucester 400. We are working on their budget at the same time, so.
I don't know if this Laura, is it Ventimiglia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I work with Mike Ventimiglia with Timberline, and I worked with his brother in Ipswich. So I had to learn how to say the last name.
Trying, really trying.
Yes, it's a tongue twister for sure. If I were to look at it and try to say it, I would mess it up. So yeah.
Just practice.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for
that's okay.
Rearranging your schedule. We're just at a rapid pace here getting this done. So basically what we're going to do is go through your departments, personnel, ordinary, We'll ask the committee if they have any questions. We'll move on with it and we'll get all of your departments out of the way and then we'll make the motions after. Please, if you see anything that has a crazy increase, if you feel that it needs some explanation, feel free to let us know. But if it's a contractual obligation, you can just say that and we'll understand. And
Okay.
if we have further questions, we will ask them at the end.
Okay, so my only question for you is, that you had sent an invite to Jamie Corliss for the budget meeting, which he doesn't normally attend with me. So I said, don't worry about it. Then I realized that you sent me CPC stuff. Obviously CPC is a mixture of state funding and state, sorry, this is reminding me to get on this meeting with you. Anyway, if you want Jamie, let me know.
No, we
That's a
actually
revenue
already addressed the
conversation more than
CPA.
an expenditure, but so you just let me
Yeah.
know.
No, we actually did that last week. So I'm sorry if there was any confusion on that.
Okay.
We're good to go on that.
Okay, fantastic. So I have, in the order that they were sent to me, Concom's on what is page 24. Is that where you want to start? Conservation.
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine. 24 Conservation Commission.
So nothing really exciting or changing here. Obviously we have, I think the only thing for me to say here is this budget as it stands is supported by the Concom fees. And I think and we support, a full-time agent and a part-time admin support. So we're at 1.5 people. I think the most important thing, and I didn't in this budget decide to move forward with a large change, but reflecting upon this past year of COVID, I am going to put it out to you all counselors now and to the administration that going forward in next year, I think we need to have a further discussion about the expectations out of Conservation Commission. There's been a lot of calls where they expect conservation to be environmental dispatch, to be able to respond to issues from neighbors and things like that. Staffed at 1.5 people, that's not a possibility for this. We have the most permits filed in the Commonwealth. Every agenda since about probably March, they're maxed out at 10. Legally, they can only put 10 new items and every agenda is maxed out. So I just want to get it out there to people. This year we're putting this forward. I think Adrian and now Debbie Laurie's over there, who's tried and true city admin support. They're good, but if the larger vision for the long term for Concom is more enforcement, more response to these kind of larger neighborhood or kind of complaint issues, more involvement in the larger open space planning and environmental planning, we really will have to take a look at Concom in the future. But for this year, no big changes. And we're thrilled to have our office, but I'm here for questions. And I know you counselors and mayor's office, you're the ones who are getting those calls. I think we log in the Concom office somewhere between 25 and 75 phone calls a day with a part-time person.
So if there's any wish, as I'm headed out the door to the future city council, is that we take the time to get educated by each and every department head during a workshop, have as many workshops as you need to have to learn from the department heads on what their department does, what they're capable of handling, because I know for a fact that I was one of those people calling community or Concom and logging in a neighbor to neighbor complaint regarding a project. And I had no idea that Concom was definitely not the department that should have been getting those calls. So I think it's the most important thing for new counselors, because we're going to have upwards of maybe 4 new counselors out of 9 next year. And it could even be more depending on how the election goes. But it's 10 years and that's never happened. And I think what Jill is referring to regarding Concom is that I just, I made the assumption that it was a conservation enforcement problem, and it was not. So,
Well, it probably is there's a chance, and I'm looking, well, Counselor Memhard is very aware, and Counselor Gilman, and for their districts, it probably is a Concom concern. The question is, the problem is the Concom office is not currently set up to respond to those types of concerns. So we log them, and Counselor McCarthy and I have had this conversation. We log them, we log all the calls, we look at them if it's an environmental disaster, of which we have some, obviously those move to the top, but in general, that we log them in a similar way to the police, that like we log them, we look into it. If we need to take action, we do, but we can't respond, I think, to the level that most counselors are hoping. And they did it one time, and I don't know who might have been around. I know John, obviously, as Counselor McCarthy, not as a counselor. About 15 years ago, when Nancy Ryder was the agent, that office was 3.5 people. And that's the last time that it was able to respond in that way. With just the increase in permits has been insane. I don't know if anyone's walked around Wheelers Point recently. I walk there often. Anyway, I think there's a DEP sign outside of every single house on Wheelers Point. So the increase in permitting. So it's just, like you said, something to think about for the future. We want to meet the expectations of the mayor's office and of city council, of course. But it's my job as the department head to communicate to you when it's just not capable with the current staffing situation.
So I think it's a good idea to review. I'm surprised that the agendas and stuff like that, and that we're #1 in the Commonwealth. It doesn't surprise me regarding our terrain, and it doesn't surprise me regarding being on the construction side of it, and knowing how many DEP signs I've had to make this year just for my employer. It's huge, and nobody is stopping with construction, and it's just crazy. So I do hope that you are able to get the help that you need for that department, and maybe even next year, working in a half-year budget and moving forward from them. But I do know that Concom is overworked and understaffed, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, we will, with the mayor's leadership, we will dive deeper when they're ready to do that. So,
yeah. The last thing you want to do is have upset residents not being able to get on an agenda, and is that state law that you can only have 10?
You can only open 10.
Can we apply that?
Well, and you wouldn't want to anyway. They would be on. Have you ever? Well, you have. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Their meetings are already between 3 and 4 hours long, so that's the reason.
Yeah.
Those are 10 new items, but yeah.
Okay. Councilor Gilman.
So because my ward abuts so many of the oceanfront parts of Gloucester, I absolutely concur with what Jill has said and what you said, Melissa. And I guess I wonder, I know we don't have a motion on the table right now, but I wonder if this data wouldn't be helpful for this BNF committee to look at now, rather than having to wait, knowing that you're going into another fiscal year understaffed. And I only say that because, every person I talk to as a ward counselor thinks that, they're paying taxes, 50%, are on private roads, so their potholes don't get fixed, and then they just start lining up all the things, but yet we offer so much in our community. We know that we do that. So I guess I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be worth a pause and to get some of this data that kind of shows the numbers by communities that perhaps are like us, like Newburyport, Rowley, Ipswich, some of those communities that have a lot of building going on oceanfront sections, or a lot of open space issues, abutting vernal ponds and everything else. I mean, those things are just consuming us.
Yeah.
And I guess, we posted this as a committee of a whole, so I could, mention my thoughts. So That's all. I just wanted to plant that seed, and I'll mute myself, but thank you.
So Counselor, the only reason I didn't, so we have some of that information this year. And we talked about it as we went through, but I'm hesitant to respond to a year as crazy as 2020 and 2021. Because, so I'd want to take, I feel like we need a bigger picture, right? Because, and as again, you guys were counselors, you guys know, either everybody was home, so either they were the person cutting the tree or the person calling on their neighbor who was cutting the tree. So I would like to think that, and again, and everybody all of a sudden was in their homes and needing more space, right? So now everybody wants a new patio and everybody, so I pulled back for this year, hoping that we could get a better sense, better big picture. You know, but obviously it's at the will of the committee. And the other part is the like leveling out of, I'd hate to make assumptions based on permit filings for this past year for income based on Concom income. Again, because I just feel like it's a hard year to know. We may fall off a cliff here eventually, right? I mean, the economy's great now and building's great now, but I don't want to stand something up that can't be sustained. And right now this, and John might have an opinion on this. He doesn't have his camera on. Right now this is funded fully by Concom fees. I think to expand, it would need some general funds. So I just think it would that's the reason I didn't bring that forward this year. Because it's a little volatile right now.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate the explanation. Thanks.
Yeah.
I would, if this was a prior year concern, I would agree with you, Counselor Gilman. I also preferred that the department head work with the administration on a first time request and it not be handled through the budget and finance process of the fiscal budget. I think that's possibly overstepping as far as our role. So I prefer to let the department head work with the administration on requests, and then assist the department head or the administration with further conversation. And again, as Jill had pointed out, trying to figure out if this is going to be routine or if this is just, again, everybody being home and being more observant. And I hope there is a cliff at some point where construction gets back to normal and that prices get back to normal. It's just, I am so glad that I got my deck built last year instead of this year. There's no way I would have to take out a second mortgage just to pay for the lumber prices. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
the administration has been very supportive of the Concom office through the chaotic year. I mean, because we all, right? They call any number that will pick up.
Nothing precludes this from being revisited during the year. So
yeah.
Great. I'm cool.
Yes.
I wanted to bring it up.
But thank you for your support. It means a
attach
lot
with
for the counselors to
administration and-
understand what's
Sounds
happening
good.
over there.
Thank you.
That's a reason.
Right. All right. Any questions regarding conservation? Any requests for a revisit? All right. I recommend that the City Council approve FY22 appropriations for Conservation Commission as follows: personnel services $91,974, ordinary maintenance $15,000, for a total of $106,974, and I so move.
Second.
I just realized that I said that I was going to read the motions afterwards, but I already got through it. So further discussion, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, now moving to page 25, community development.
So really 2 initiatives through this budget this year, both things that I'm thrilled to have the support of the administration on, and I know I've spoken to some of the members about. I know Madam Chair, you and I have been talking about one of the positions for quite a long time too. So Number one is Jamie Corliss is our grants administrator. She is currently funded 75% by CDBG and CPA and on 25% general fund. CDBG and CPA obviously are very specific about the time that she puts into them and charging that time. So that only leaves 25% of her time to help this department and the larger city move forward on professionalizing and unifying our grant approach across the board. I think, and John Dunn and I, and it was Nicole at the time, had a really productive conversation about kind of the vision long-term for the grants department and how we can be more successful at not having more than one department applying for the same grant. We can be more successful at lining up projects in advance and matching money with projects that are in the pipeline. There's just a lot more that can go into the grant administration piece if the person who is helping to look at that big picture isn't only funded by one specific grant, right? So she can't do that on her CDBG time. Jamie has proven to be an incredible asset to this team and to the city overall. I think she's perfect for this job. So what I'm asking is that we move her to 50% general funded, and the other 50% will stay CDBG. The CPA, so when Debbie Laurie moved to Concom, she was doing a part-time role just in the housing rehab program, which is funded through CDBG. I'll get better candidates, and I'd like to post that position as a full-time position with housing, a project manager with housing as its focus, which they'll do CPA, which, as you guys know, one of their priorities is housing. They'll staff the Affordable Housing Trust, which is could potentially be a funding stream, but that has to be determined depending on their funding stream. Housing rehab and first-time home buyers. So I'll move CPA off of Jamie's plate, be able to post for a solid full-time project manager, completely grant funded. And that frees up Jamie to help us, some of the things we want. We have a couple big properties on the market right now that could use some brownfield funds that we'd like to get back into the federal brownfields revolving loan game. With the ARPA money coming forward, there's a lot, and John and I have talked about this a bit, but there's, in addition to the kind of lump, the like city allocation, there are ones that different cities you can apply to. I'd like Jamie to play a role in that. And then, as I said, the overall grant administration. So that's one of them. And then the other initiative is something that the mayor's spoken to me about since I started, and I'm thrilled to bring it forward finally. And that's a part-time position in our economic development team to work with the arts and culture community and focus on community events. I think the creative economy is a huge piece of what is Gloucester, right? Our culture and our history and the arts. And there is not currently, as you know, our economic development team is technically Sal. And I give a lot of my time to that because, especially through COVID. And we have Al Catone, who's the fisheries director, but the arts and culture piece, it's not Sal's forte or focus for sure. I've been giving a lot of my time to it, but I think it deserves more. And I also think the events piece, community programming is a piece that we really don't have or do here. The outdoor movies are a perfect example in that they started as part of the Harbor Walk. And then the programming of the Harbor Walk just happened to stay in planning, although it's totally not associated with planning, right? Planning should set the Harbor Walk up, and then programming should go to what you would be like a Parks and Rec type function. So things like those events, people talk about Salem So Sweet in the winter, some community events that really highlight that come from the city. We have great partners, but I know this mayor has lots of visions for different types of events, seafood markets, and she loves the outdoor movie, so I think that's one of the reasons she supports us. So that is, that's really the other big change that I'm asking for this budget season. I'm happy to answer questions, and I hope you guys will support them.
That was definitely I think that was a longer presentation than the fire department.
Well, I don't want you guys to just say yes and not know what I'm doing over here.
No, I actually expect Chief Smith to be a lot longer than he was. So that was amazing. No, you're perfectly in line with everything that explaining everything. I'm just shocked that Chief Smith was not longer.
Sometimes they think that if they don't say anything, you won't notice, right?
True. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jill regarding her staffing?
Just to reiterate what we talked about last week at some of the budget hearings, that any of the, reorganization of departments should by charter be run through the council. So just keeping that in mind going forward.
Yep, I do agree with you on that. All right. Were any of these absolutely new positions that this department didn't have in the past?
No, no. All of these positions have happened here in the past. In grants administrator it had been over 5 years before I brought on Jamie. So, and that's not a new position. That's just that's the funding streams. The project managers have always been a part of CDBG. There used to, when I started, there were 3. And the arts and culture events coordinator, there was tourism before as well. So yeah. They've all been here.
I appreciate the fact that we're doing arts, culture, and events coordinator and not just a tourism contact, because it is more than just tourism. And I think this is just a better explanation of what they do for your department and for the city overall. So
we make a solid investment in tourism anyway. So, this is, yeah.
Is that who sits in on special events now, Jill?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Would this new position, the arts, culture, and events, would you see that person taking over that role for you?
I have to think about it, because so the box that I check for SEAC is tourism. The role I play on SEAC is different. is more of a bit of a leadership role, just because I have a background in events and understanding the community, what it takes to put on the event. So, but we are moving towards SEAC is moving towards the online permitting. So I'd have to think about that. I think it would depend on what my future role is with SEAC. But right now, I wouldn't put a part-time person in there, because Chris sits in on the last few. I play more of a leadership role than I expected to play on that committee, and I like the role. I'm happy to do it. I'm not sure everybody else does, but it brings the larger. I think that I check the box for tourism, but on SEAC, I bring the larger perspective of what does this look like for the community, and what's the benefit to tourism, and what's the benefit to the businesses, and I've planned events for 10,000 people. So actually you have to think about all these other things. So the role I play is much different than the box I check. So probably not.
I would like to see, with this increase in staffing, that you, and you are great at delegating, but at the same time, your wealth of knowledge is large, but I also, I see you taking on a lot of different things, and I don't want you to burn out, because you are amazing at what you do in this department. And, we would definitely want to see you continue with the city and this role that you're doing. I just, I wish more help for you.
Thank you. I love my job, and that's just it is. I think we crank out a significant amount of work for the amount of people we are, and I've built a great team, and so I hope.
Yeah, and I do, from my history with being on the city council, prior to you coming aboard, and seeing what you've been able to do with that department has just been amazing. So the way you manage your staff, the way you work with your staff, there's nothing that you wouldn't have asked your staff to do that you also wouldn't know how to do and would be willing to do. So I think that is the true character of a very good leader. So I appreciate that out of your department, and seeing the things that your department has been able to do through this pandemic, how you've handled a week and a half notice from the governor that you're going to rip off the Band-Aid and reopen the entire state. When you originally thought your deadline was going to be August 1st. So, you know, with the support of the administration behind you and the city council, I think you have a very powerful department and a very responsible department. So, I mean, I'm somewhat sad that this is my last budget meeting, but I'm certainly not going anywhere. I'm still going to be resident of the city, might run again later, who knows? But just seeing this department grow over the last 5 years has just been really rewarding. So thank you for all your help and service and guidance. So
Thank you.
I think if there's any department that has managed to grow and stay extremely productive, I would give that award to community development for sure. So
Thank you.
so thank you.
You cannot put on the COMCOM agent's boots and go into some bogs and make those determinations. I will say that is the one job that I do among my team that I do not claim to fully understand the Wetlands Protection Act, but I am very glad that we have a responsible agent that does.
Yes, I think that would be the next poster, Don, was you and hip waders going into the wetlands. That would be fun. All right. Does anybody have any further questions for community development? Comments? Okay. All right, so I'm just going to read the motion. I recommend the city council approve FY22 appropriation for community development as follows. Personal services, $550,639. Ordinary maintenance, $86,275 for a total of $636,914. And I so move.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, so the next page is page 82. And that is the Tourism Commission.
So no real changes here. As you know, the positions, the funding for personnel is the visitor center coordinator, who we're happy to have Carol Mandello still in that position. Although I think the health department misses her deeply in their coordinator position, but I'm glad she was able to move so easily between the two when they needed her this past year. I think for this year, we are probably not bringing in the part-time person just because of limited space in there with COVID, although that was our plan prior to ripping the Band-Aid off. So we will see. But no major changes here at all. I just think it's important to point out the cultural districts had their funding had sat unused for quite some time when before I came and when I first started. And you don't have to worry about that anymore. We're spending all that money. If you don't know about it yet, you will soon. We received 2 grants. You guys saw the grants, and we're doing the Culture Splash on Thursday nights with free trolley and water shuttle transportation between the 2 cultural districts, and highlighting all the cultural assets, and it's coming together wonderfully, and it's really exciting. But they will be using all that money this year and next to pull this off. But I think it's great. We have a lot of movement. As you know, Rocky Neck is independent. They work, they have their own kind of leadership in the cultural center. Michael DaCosta from Maritime Gloucester and Cape Air Museum have really stepped up to help lead on the Harbor Town piece, which is important because that's been wavering since I started, didn't really have a home. So, so I just thought I'd give you that update. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
One thing I would have to say for your department and Pond Road as a whole is I would love to see an administrative position that kind of floated between all the departments over there, because I think everybody could use an extra person occasionally. I mean, some times of the year are certainly busier for others. You know, Board of Health, their busier time is for flu clinics and stuff like that. Yours is definitely CPA, you know, gearing up for big events for the summer. IT sometimes with implementation projects, you know, Board of Health, food inspectors getting ready for the summer. I just think there could be a possibility for a floater admin person with the basic understanding of how to use the calendar, how to help the departments with paperwork and stuff like that. And I know every department over there is very unique with their paperwork, but again, you know, filling in for somebody when they're taking lunch, vacation, stuff like that, just having a well-rounded person. The building inspector's office, they have two wonderful ladies that help out. You know, I just think there could be a possible need for that. So that would be my only wish list.
We've talked about it a lot. I have lots of ideas. When James was here, James, Karen, and I have talked with the mayor's office a bunch about how we can work together on some of those things. And if we don't currently have a receptionist. Anyway, so yeah, lots of ideas there. If the administration wants to move further on any of that, we're happy to bring it forward.
Okay. All right. Anything further from the committee? Any counselor questions for Tourism Commission?
No.
All right. I recommend City Council approve FY22 appropriations for Tourism Commission as follows. Personal services, $20,838. Ordinary maintenance, $128,500 for a total of $149,338, and I so move.
Second.
Further discussion, seeing none, roll call vote. Council McCarthy.
Yes.
Council Memhard.
Yes.
Councilor Cox. Yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you so much, Jill, for being flexible with your schedule today. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. Happy to see that there are no revisits.
Thank you all. Thank you, Counselor.
Not that you had a choice, but you know, it was great to at least say that.
Thank you,
Hi,
Counselors,
Jill.
and thank you. The support of the administration on this budget request has been fantastic. So thank you. Good luck, and here's to whoever's next.
Yes.
You're it.
You were it.
Yeah. Well, John. Poor John.
Oh, John. He just left. Oh no, I was kidding. All right, goodbye, you guys. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. All right.
All right, page 94, liability insurance.
All right. Everybody with us?
Okay, so again, there's a budgetary increase this year for insurance, but it's actually less than what we've expended in the current year. We did have a little bit of a bump. Our insurance is with Maya, which is the big statewide consortium for municipalities. What happens in many years is that there are credits that are earned. We just didn't earn as much credit in fiscal 21 as we did in fiscal 20, and as it looks like we will for fiscal 22. So I did need to bump it somewhat. So I bumped it to $700,000, and we hope that that will be enough.
Any questions from the committee? Councilor Goman.
Thank you. John, when we use additional attorneys to Maya, is that covered under Maya in any ways if Maya doesn't have the resources, or the decision is just to hire different attorneys?
So it depends. If the action that the attorneys are supporting or defending a position is associated with insurance that we pay for, then there's a deductible that we pick up, but after that, Maya picks up the balance. And those are going to be some liability claims for trip and falls and that type of thing, as well as certain personnel related expenditures for legal consultation. But again, if for the most part, if it's insurable and we pay insurance, then after the deductible, then Maya does pay for the attorneys.
John, can you tell us from previous years to this year if we've had an increase or decrease in instances in which we have needed to use Maya? Is that a calculable thing?
It probably is, but I have to go searching for it. Melissa, it's not something that is generally reportable. So I could ask what type of action we've had. I mean, sometimes I will see it specifically, particularly if there's a deductible involved, because I have to pay the deductible. But if it's just regular course of business and there's no deductible, then I'm not necessarily going to know what they bring in. But I can certainly ask.
All right. What is our deductible? Is it standard every year?
It depends. It depends on the insurance. They range from $1,000 to $10,000, depending on what the action is.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. You have two windows open and it's causing a crazy feedback.
Sorry. Sorry,
All right.
my battery was dying.
And you're making me seasick.
All right, so
Are we good?
did I answer your question?
You
Again,
did, but I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so the deductibles range depending on what it is from $1,000 to $10,000. So it depends on which policy we're taking action or defending under.
Okay. Would it be correct in the assumption that the more claims that are used in a year, that the liability costs could go up in the following year? Because it typically, through the private area, which I'm accustomed to, it takes about a year and a half for it to catch up with the rates in regards to the use.
Possibly. So if you have a trend and you're on an increasing trend and that trend has been there for a number of years, then yes, your overall costs are probably going to go up. But everybody has certain years that spike and certain years that you come in considerably under. So you paid a lot more for the insurance than you've used. But that's what insurance is. If you're underinsured, if you will, and your claims are constant and exceeding something, then yes, you will get an increase. And at the same time, Maya, like a lot of other insurance brokers, and that's really what they are, offers various incentives to prevent you from having claims. So there's any number of safe driving courses that they run for police and fire and DPW personnel. There's dig safe courses. There's a variety of other things that reduce the incidence perhaps of having something that you did result in a claim. So it works both ways. Simply if you have 1 year that's a spike, counselor, you're not going to necessarily pay for it the following year. If you have 3 years or 4 years of an increasing trend, then it will go up.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Goodwin, did you have anything further?
Yeah,
I kind of piggybacked, sorry.
I'm a little bit confused, but it sounds like Maya kind of can act like a Blue Cross Blue Shield, where if you go out of network and you pay your deductible, it allows you to use other attorneys. Is that kind of true, John, if I'm using that as an analogy here?
No, I mean, we don't get to pick the attorney, Val. So the attorney, they have a stable of attorneys that specialize in certain, insurable actions. And they use them. We don't get to pick them because essentially, even though they're representing us, they're defending the claim so that they don't have to pay it. So they're not going to say, okay, there's a claim here that's an insurable claim. You, the client, City of Gloucester, go out and pick an attorney that you want to use to defend that claim, and then we'll pay whatever the damages are. So that's not how it works.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything further for John regarding liability insurance? All right. I recommend the city council approve FY22 appropriation for liability insurance as follows. Ordinary maintenance, 700,000 for a total of the same. And I so move.
Second,
Further conversation? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Councilor Cox. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Is that it for you, John?
That is it. I think you need to return for a couple of votes on
Yep.
sewer and the rink.
Yep.
And then I think that's it.
All right, let me knock those out real quick then. I recommend the city council approve FY22 sewer enterprise appropriations as follows. Personal services, 1,775,084. Ordinary maintenance, 4,705,627. Capital outlay, 259,421. Debt service, 2,569,595 for a total appropriation of 9,309,727, and I so move.
Second,
Kenny came on camera, so I'm waiting for him to double check my numbers. No, good, all right. All right, further discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Cox, motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. I recommend the city council approve FY22 sewer enterprise revenues as follows. Total revenue, 9,309,727, and for the total of the same, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. I recommend city council approve the FY22 sewer rate of $16.16 per 1,000 gallons for a 12-month billing period effective July 1, 2021, retroactive to April 1st, 2021, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion, just that this is an 85-cent increase from FY21 sewer rate of $15.31. Roll call vote. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Councilor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Moving on to Talbot Rink. I recommend the city council approve FY22 Talbot Rink appropriations as follows. Personal services, 161,302. Ordinary maintenance, 93,000. Capital outlay, 7,000. Debt service, 41,313 for a total appropriation of 302,615, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council Memhard,
yes,
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. I recommend City Council approve the total FY 22 Talbot Rink Enterprise revenue as follows. Total revenue, 302,615 for a total of the same, and I so move.
second,
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Good gravy. I think we're done. Well, kind of.
Kenny's got his hand up.
Oh, good God.
You have one more motion.
Oh,
So
yes.
there's-
Sorry,
There's 200,000 for retained earnings for the sewer.
Yeah.
enterprise.
sorry, that was over here. Okay.
Just reminding.
Kenny, always keeping me on my toes. All right, I recommend the city council appropriate in the amount of 200,000 from the sewer enterprise fund undesignated fund balance retained earnings free cash to sewer enterprise fund balance reserved for special purposes. The purpose of this appropriation from sewer enterprise fund retained earnings free cash is to reduce the sewer user charges rate for the fiscal year 2022, and I so move.
Second,
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
yes.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, is that it, everybody, for the day? So I will adjourn the meeting of a whole. Do we need, did I roll call vote that last time, Sherry? I don't remember.
To adjourn, yeah.
To adjourn? Okay.
Yes, Councilor Cox.
Just, thank you. Just a reminder, we have another meeting tomorrow night with the school. I sent everybody an email this morning in regards to the presentation. The committee has their books. There is an extra one in the clerk's office if anybody is inclined to go and review that. I will see everybody back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Typically, we have the school presentation in the evening so parents can attend, teachers can attend, so we don't do that one during the day. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded,
Okay, roll call vote. Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council Memhard,
yes, and enjoy the rest of the beautiful day.
Counselor Cox, yes. Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work and knocking it out before noon. We did better than we did last year. So again, thank you, everybody, for everybody's hard work. Have a
Very good.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Day,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, Counselor Gilman.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Well.